put something up where he just talked a little shite. So we're gonna go with real quick here and see if we can like shotgun this.
All right, let's go. 100 proofs the Earth is flat off memory while juggling solid steel balls.
Like so play the balls.
Second
law of thermodynamics doesn't actually disprove anything, because second law of thermodynamics is down to having a completely closed system, and the Earth is not a closed system because it gets energy in from the sun, and also meteorites can come and enter into the Earth system as well. So we have it's not a completely closed system. The only system that's completely closed is the entire universe.
Thermodynamics, Newton's third law of motion.
Newton's third law of motion is... I just gotta double check and make sure I remember what it is again. What is Newton's third law of motion?
It says that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Think of it like this. When you jump, you push down on the ground pushes you up into the air. Do you want to hear some more examples of how this law works?
Does Newton's third law of motion falsify the globe model?
Newton's third law of motion doesn't really have anything to do with proving whether the Earth is flat or round. It's more about how forces work. So the third law is about how forces act in pairs. For example, when you push against a wall, the wall pushes back on you with the same amount of force. This is true whether the Earth is flat or round. Do you have any other questions about the third law?
No, that's it for now. Thank you.
No problem. If you ever want to explore other laws of motion or any other science topics, feel free to ask.
So there you are.
All the gas laws. Abyssal plains take up 50% of the ocean's floor.
The gas laws actually don't disprove the globe whatsoever. Flat earthers don't realize that other forces can act upon gas, and we don't have atmospheric pressure next to a vacuum. We have a pressure gradient. As you increase in altitude, your pressure drops off gradually, which works perfectly with the globe and doesn't break any gas laws. What are the abyssal plains?
Abyssal plains are like deep, flat parts of the ocean floor. They're super smooth and cover a huge chunk of the Earth's surface. Did you want to know how they're formed, or something else about them?
How are they formed?
They're formed over millions of years by sediment slowly drifting down from the continents and settling on the ocean floor. It's kind of like how dust settles on things in your house, but on a much bigger scale.
Accelerometer in your phone proves we're not moving. The
accelerometer in your phone doesn't prove we're not moving, because the accelerometer uses its reference frame is the Earth itself, and the fact that we're already moving. As you said, the Newton's second law of motion is objects in motion tend to stay in motion, objects in rest tend to stay in rest unless acted upon by a different force. The accelerometer in your phone is uses the reference of the Earth is already in motion, but if you look at something like a mechanical gyroscope, the left, and if you let it run, and after setting it on to, let's say, orienting it to the north, the geographic north, it actually will measure a 15 degree per hour drift. Thanks, Bob, for also showing that with a ring laser gyroscope several times over.
Aries failure, Elias effect, airplane level.
Aries failure doesn't actually prove the motion of the Earth, because the Aries failure was looking at talking about the aether, in which Aries failure actually disproved the aether to exist. But let's just double check and say that. Hey Gemini.
Hey there, what's on your mind today?
I'm just live on my YouTube channel, and somebody claimed the Aries failure disproved the motion of the Earth.
That's an interesting claim, but it's not really accurate. Aries' experiment was actually designed to measure how the speed of light changes in different mediums, like water and air. It didn't have anything to do with proving or disproving the Earth's movement. Do you want to know more about the experiment itself?
Yes, go on. Yes,
Sure.
please.
So, in 1870... Okay, Okay, so the experiment involved filling a telescope with water and observing how starlight behaved as it passed through. Airy wanted to see if the Earth's motion would cause the starlight to appear slightly shifted due to something called aberration. The idea was that if the Earth was moving, the starlight would appear to come in at a slightly different angle, kind of like how rain appears to fall at an angle when you're driving in a car. But Airy found that the starlight didn't shift as expected. This result was initially confusing, but it actually helped scientists understand more about the nature of light and how it behaves. It didn't disprove the Earth's motion, but it did lead to some important discoveries about physics.
Is Airy's failure similar to what James Bradley did?
That's a great question. Both Airy and Bradley were studying the same phenomenon called stellar aberration, which is the apparent shift in a star's position due to the Earth's motion. Bradley discovered it, and Airy was trying to understand it better. Do you want to know more about how stellar aberration works?
Yes.
Sure. Stellar aberration is this cool effect where stars seem to move slightly in the sky over the course of a year. It's caused by the Earth's movement around the sun, combined with the fact that light takes time to travel. Imagine you're standing in the rain, and the rain is falling straight down. If you start walking forward, the rain will appear to come at you at an angle, right? That's kind of what happens with starlight. As the Earth moves, the starlight appears to shift its angle slightly. Does that make sense?
Yes. So what did Airy figure out with his experiment?
Airy's experiment was actually designed to test a theory about how light moves through different substances. He wanted to see if the Earth's movement affected the apparent angle of starlight, but his results didn't quite match what he expected. It turned out that his experiment didn't really tell us anything new about the Earth's motion, but it did help scientists understand a bit more about how light behaves.
How did that happen?
Well, staying in shape as the Earth's movement didn't affect the starlight in the way Airy expected. His experiment actually helped confirm that the speed of light is constant, which was a key part of Einstein's theory of relativity.
So there you are.
Level flight, the FAA trains pilots on the target generation facility.
That is completely level and flat flight. Actually, it has to do with maintaining a level orientation over the Earth or where they are. And target generation facility is not. Pilots are not trained on that. Nathan is already corrected on this. The target generation facility is what air traffic controllers are trained on, not pilots. So he's already had this corrected to him, but he refuses to listen.
That's a flat, non-rotating Earth, and they negate a gravity vector. Then you have the
attitude indicator is he's going on about the. So an attitude indicator uses either a apparatus that has gyroscopes on it and has accelerometers, which are oriented to the downward downward vector of gravity, and then it corrects itself. It has motors and stuff that if it figures out that the plane isn't actually turning at the same time, it will orient itself to go back to the gravity. Now, if even to the point now, if you were in a plane and you were to continue just going around in a complete circle and keep banked, what would happen is you'd see your false horizon and stuff like that would actually start to come back and orient itself back up again. That's why planes, pilots, when they fly, is they're doing like a holding pattern. They go straight along, then they come around, and then they go straight along, and then they go turn around like this. So it does a quick turn. It'll false like that, and then come back like that, and that way it keeps the false horizon and stuff. And it's called the attitude indicator. It'll keep it oriented the way towards gravity because it's designed to have quick motions and then go back, and then that 2 minutes, a few minutes going this way, make sure that it maintains its orientation to level to the Earth, and then it comes around again. Now, before that, they had pendulous vanes. They also use that in some of the aircrafts like that, and what that does is that as you turn and stuff like that, it'll open up a port that will, if you would keep that orientation like that, same thing would happen. The port causes the gyroscope to orient itself back down again. But it's designed that a quick motion like turning and doing what a plane does, then it'll maintain that. It doesn't move quick enough. Also before that, they had other things like almost like a magnetic orientation. There's that would do the same sort of thing. That after a while, it would actually bring the attitude indicator back. Does it faster than a plane does going cresting over the curvature of the Earth. But for fast motions to stuff, it means it can show accuracy. But yeah, attitude indicators actually are designed because they knew about this way back when they developing planes to do any kind of distance and stuff like that. That they figured this out and they found ways inventing it to get around that. So
attitude indicator inside the airplane. If you're going around a globe, the gimbal base would shift its orientation around the gyroscope. Then you've got ancient civilizations. Angular size of Mercury would be impossible to see on the heliocentric model. Astrolabes, astroarchaeology, lining up giant megalithic structures with the sky.
The ancient cosmology, I think way back in the day when people didn't go very far, but they also thought that that the sun and the moon went underneath the Earth, and so the whole Earth was in darkness at the same time and came up at the same time. Now we know that's different. Megalithic structures like Stonehenge and stuff like that actually show that only work because the way that the Earth moves, the globe and stuff like that. And in fact, nowadays, old megalithic structures don't line up like they used to. But in about another few thousand years, they'll start lining up again because of the Earth's wobble. It actually has a precession of the wobble goes changes slightly. So what else did he go on about? I said to him I was going to do this.
Archaeology, lining up giant megalithic structures with the sky. Astronauts should not be drowning.
What else do you say there?
Then you've got ancient civilizations. Angular size of Mercury would be impossible.
Angular size of Mercury is not impossible on the globe. In fact, it proves the globe quite easily and quickly. And as simple as this. Let's say if the camera was like, say, this on the sun, Mercury would be over here, and even though I'm in darkness over here, let's have to say in England, Mercury would be over here where my finger is, just off like that, and it could be darkness, and you'll still see Mercury even though I'm on the other side. If you had Mercury there, and because you only see Mercury just after sunset or just before sunrise, and let's do the same thing. Also, Mercury only appears as either quarter or at most half and that's because it's on the inside of the orbit, so we can only see half of it. We can't see where it's like Mars and stuff like that. We'll see the full lit up all the other planets, and it's because we're on the inside and we can see the sun shining on them. But Mercury and Venus, like Venus is very bright, we can see that, and that's only because they are inside, so we only see half or a quarter of them, depending on where they are in their orbits. But yes, we can certainly see them, and it actually proves the heliocentric model and disproves the flat Earth. Because how could Mercury be orbiting around the sun if the sun is only 3,000 miles above the surface of the Earth, underneath a magical dome floating above us? That wouldn't work. In fact, Mercury and Venus disprove the geocentric model, and they definitely disprove the flat Earth model.
See on the heliocentric model, astrolabes, astroarchaeology, lining up giant megalithic structures with the sky. Astronauts should not be drowning in space. The AE map.
Astronauts can't, if the fact is that they have a water cooling system that runs through their backpack, through all their power plant and stuff like that. It keeps them either cool or warmed, as well as it wicks away their it has a recirc that recircs like any of their sweat and stuff like that, and it keeps them from. Now they can't. What happened is there had been a situation on the ISS in which one astronaut's suits, the water cooling system inside, sprung a leak. And if you've ever seen water in 0G, it floats up, it touches something, you can't get it off. Obviously, he's got a helmet on, he can't touch his face, he can't push the water off. And it went over top of his mouth, and he nearly kind of drowned because he couldn't breathe. He had water over top. Because it kind of attached, it gets hold of something like that, and you have adhesion, water has adhesion, that's why it stays the salt, keeps the salt together. You have surface tension, and that's what happens. So now they had put in a system that they could have like almost like a snorkel inside, that if something like that were to happen, you have something to get air into them, straight into the mouth, without because the water is not covering them up. So that's what had actually happened. If you look into this a little bit, you'd see that that's how the astronauts, they have, like I said, how the systems work, and you understand what had happened.
Is used by the USGS to calculate distances outward from the North Pole and to map Antarctica.
What is the USGS?
The USGS is the United States Geological Survey. It's a government agency that studies the Earth, its natural resources, and the natural hazards that threaten it. They do things like monitor earthquakes, track water resources, and map the land.
Do earthquakes show that the Earth is actually a globe?
Earthquakes themselves don't directly prove the Earth's shape, but the way seismic waves travel through the Earth gives us a lot of information about its internal structure. Scientists use those wave patterns to map out the Earth's layers, and that data aligns with a spherical model.
So would earthquakes work on a flat Earth?
Earthquakes are caused by the movement of tectonic plates, which are massive pieces of the Earth's crust. These plates float on a layer of semi-molten rock, and their movement creates stress that is released as earthquakes. This process is consistent with the Earth being a globe, not a flat surface.
There you are. See, USGS, like I said, earthquakes, and you can see the seismic waves, and they work out perfectly and model out with the globe. In fact, we can see this quite easily.
Bardet Krenz, world record photograph, Bedford level, famous test, over a 6-mile canal.
Yeah, the Bedford level was disproved a couple years after it was done. The fellow who'd done it, whose name is Robotham, was knew nothing about didn't account for the atmosphere and the fact that we have atmospheric refraction. So as he put his boat down the canal, he didn't account for the fact is that the atmosphere being thicker, air being cooler over top of the water would cause the objects to appear slightly higher. About 3 years later, it was actually done by a surveyor who did account for the atmospheric refraction, the exact same thing, and disproved Robotham's observations. And using that it proved and aligned with the Earth being a globe. So the Bedford level was the first time was done by Robotham. He didn't take all the factors into account, the confounding variables, and when it was done again, it actually it showed how it worked, and it aligns with the globe model.
The Bible says the Earth is flat, non-rotating.
The Bible isn't. The Bible is a storybook that's been retranslated over 700 different times in different from different languages and stuff like that, and certain things have been taken out and then retranslated, and also the Bible is open to interpretation. They interpret it. Now, majority of Christians do not believe that Earth is a flat, covered dome. They know that Earth is a globe. They may think that it may be young. They may think that God created it. That's here and there. The fact is that majority of people that read the Bible, believe in the Bible, including the Vatican, know that Earth is in fact a spherical Earth orbiting on the sun and in the Milky Way galaxy.
It doesn't move, it's immovable, it will never move, it's on foundations. The black swan destroys the physical geometric horizon.
The black swan doesn't, and in fact, my last video where I did this last week, I showed that the black swan works perfectly with the globe. It does show that is high refraction, which works on the globe, as well as certain things here don't work out. Like I said, the bottom platform here, I pointed this out to Nathan himself, and he kicked me out because he didn't like it when I pointed out the fact is that the gangway in the bottom here for the boats is, why does it look like it's on the horizon when we know we can see the other one that's high up, and this actually we're looking at is about 12 to 15 feet off the surface of the water. Yet we can't see the bottom here, and that is showing that even with the high refractive rate, we can still see that the that this image here conforms with the globe. When you take this image take this exact same observation on a different day when the refractive index isn't nearly as high and isn't like one of these like obscure days, you can see that the horizon is much more clear because there's about 3 horizons in this, and you can see that it does conform more to the globe, and in fact you can see less of this platform back here. So the black swan does not disprove the globe. In fact, it works quite well with the globe, works out perfectly when you take all the factors, including the refractive index of that day, into account.
Bridges would have to account for curvature. They don't.
Bridges do account for curvature. You have the suspension bridges in particular over long distances tilt away to actually account for the curvature, as well as you have the positron causeway, which is 23 miles long, and you can clearly see the curvature of the Earth, as well as many other bridges. So that's a flat out lie.
Building walls would be leaning away from each other. They're not.
They do. If you measure now, you think 1 degree of curvature over 69 miles, you're going to see 1 degree of tilt between 2 buildings of 69 miles away from each other. No, you're not going to see that. But do they actually lean away? They do. They're measurable, and you can see that. And so that is provable and empirical and measurable.
Then you have buoyancy and density. That's all you really need for growth.
Buoyancy isn't. It needs gravity. It's actually in the formula. Buoyancy requires a downward gravity and downward vector, causing the air to denser air medium to be below to push other stuff up. And density isn't a force at all. Density has no vector, and density is simply just how tightly packed the molecules are in a substance, in a object or stuff like that. It has nothing to do with gravity.
Gravity. Then you got canals, cannons, the Canadian Geodetic Survey.
Canals.
Is not a real experiment.
Cavendish is a real experiment. It's been done several times. It's done by university students all the time. Canals actually do show that the I'm surrounded by canals. I live in the UK, and why is it that there's locks in canals that you have to go? You have to either go up or go down depending on where you are. The Canadian Geodetic Survey doesn't disprove the flat Earth on the globe. In fact, it conforms to the globe quite well, as well as the American arc of the parallel, also called the transcontinental triangulation, and it proved the curvature of the Earth. Also confirmed the curvature and of the globe, and yeah, I think was that all he had said there? I think that was it.
Crepuscular rays from the sun, anti-crepuscular
rays prove that the rays of the sun are parallel to each other. Just like if you look at train tracks, where it looks like off in the distance, looks like they come on, they go to a point, but they don't, and they go further. And as you turn around, look behind you, you see them go back again. Be it they're parallel. Anti-crepuscular rays, crepuscular rays viewed from the top are parallel, and when you see them from when you're on the ground, then it looks like they're diverging away from you. I've taken numerous pictures of this, in which I can show that let's just see here. In fact, I just did some pictures the other day. In fact, here's a video here showing it looks like these guys are the parallel, and then when you sit down and look further down, then you can see that it looks like they're diverging. They are separating out, but they are 100%. They're actually parallel to each other. So.
Crepuscular rays from the sun. There's no Coriolis.
There's Coriolis. Coriolis is measured, proven, and you can look at it quite easily. Go onto a like a weather radar website that you can show the whole globe, and you can see that the weather patterns in the north are rotating counterclockwise, and the south of the equator are rotating clockwise. And that is down to the Coriolis effect, as well as the jet stream going east to west is down to flow of the jet stream is due to the Coriolis effect, as well as long distance artillery accounts for the Coriolis, as well as any long distance rifle shots over 1,000 meters start to account for the Coriolis if no other factors are in there, like wind and stuff like that, because wind would have more of an effect on it than the Coriolis effect.
Daytime full moon, dynamo thresholds.
Daytime full moon actually works perfectly with the globe and with the Earth rotating around the globe. I meant to say the moon rotating around the Earth. It was very late when I did this. So yeah, that accounts for that. Works out perfectly. There's nothing about that.
Never been reached. Ask Dan Lanthrop at the University of Maryland.
He's lying.
The EQ mount.
EQ mounts only work on the globe. In fact, if you look, I did a video of this showing the EQ mounts compared to the flat Earth, compared to the globe. They work perfectly on the globe and actually falsify the flat Earth.
The equinoxes.
Equinoxes actually only work on the globe, and they falsify the flat Earth.
Fauna and flora is drastically different in the north than it is in the south. Frozen.
That makes no difference. Yeah, depending on different environments, stuff like that. The frozen lakes, this thing here, I actually disproved that. That's just down to the fact that light diverges from its source. And you have cold. This is frozen lakes. You have very dense medium air over top of this and higher up, and it's down to refraction and divergence of light.
Lakes have been tested. They're not curving. Fluid state, large bodies of water at rest are level and horizontal.
Horizontal in the Earth is conforms to the curvature of the Earth. No part higher than the other conforms to the liquid parts of the Earth. Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the shape of their container is, and you need a container.
Or a force. Forces. Water is subject to forces acting upon it, which is why on the ISS, water takes a spherical shape.
A ball is not a container unless you put the water on the inside, or you flatten that ball out and pour the water in a bowl.
Or you have a force, like gravity.
So, geographic range table from the U.S. Coast Guard lists distances from sea level that you can observe things. No curvature.
Yeah, there is complete 100% curvature.
The gravitational anomalies, gay loose.
Oh, I thought you said gravity doesn't exist, so why is he suddenly accounting for gravitation anomalies? That would be down to the different densities of the Earth, depending on where you are, and because density, mass attracting mass, and obviously less mass below you would cause gravitation anomalies. This is proven, measured, and we know how this works. I thought you said gravity doesn't exist, and now he's relying on gravity. That's kind of stupid.
Charles' law, Boyle's law.
Law contradicts the globe model.
Okay, so Charles's law is all about how gases expand when they're heated. It's a pretty fundamental principle in physics and chemistry. What exactly are you wondering about how it relates to the globe model?
Someone is claiming that Charles's law falsifies the globe model,
Right, I see what you're asking. Charles's law describes how gases behave, and it's definitely a real and measurable phenomenon. But it doesn't really have anything to do with proving or disproving the shape of the Earth. The idea that it does is a bit of a misunderstanding of how the law works.
I think their claim is that you need a container to maintain an atmosphere.
Okay, I see what you're getting at. It's true that you need some kind of container to maintain atmospheric pressure, but that doesn't mean the Earth needs to be a closed system, like a greenhouse. Gravity plays a huge role in keeping our atmosphere in place.
What about Boyle's law? Does that falsify the globe model of being a globe without a firmament?
Boyle's law talks about how the pressure and volume of a gas are related. It's a real thing, but it doesn't really have anything to do with proving or disproving the shape of the Earth. The idea that it does is a bit of a misunderstanding of how the law works.
Well, the claim is that there's some sort of closed container, like a firmament, like a glass dome.
Okay? I understand the argument that there needs to be a closed container like a glass dome to hold in the atmosphere. But, like I mentioned earlier, gravity does the job of keeping our atmosphere in place. It's not a perfect analogy, but think of it like how gravity keeps the ocean from spilling out into space.
Right, so Charles' law, Boyle's law, they don't actually falsify the globe heliocentric model.
That's right. Charles's law and Boyle's law are about the behavior of gases, and they don't really have anything to say about the shape of the Earth or whether it's the center of the solar system. Those are separate concepts.
Unified gas laws, does that falsify the heliocentric globe model?
The unified gas law is about how pressure, volume, and temperature of a gas are related. It's a real and useful law, but it doesn't really have anything to do with proving or disproving the shape of the Earth or its place in the solar system. Those are separate concepts.
So Boyle's law, Charles' law, and unified gas law, they don't actually prove that we have to have a firmament over top of a flat, stationary Earth.
Exactly. Boyle's law, Charles's law, and the unified gas law describe how gases behave, but they don't have anything to do with proving or disproving the shape of the Earth. Those are separate concepts.
So would gravity and the downward force be able to account for all these laws?
That's right. Gravity is what holds our atmosphere in place, and it's what accounts for those gas laws working the way they do here on Earth.
Unified gas law. Then you've got Occam's razor, Orbiter's paradox.
Occam's razor, was it so all Occam's razor? All things being equal, the simplest answer is the most correct one. So is it that, what do you think is more reasonable? The fact is that we are on a sphere, which is all observable and measurable, or the fact is that we live under a dome that nobody can prove. They don't know how high the sun is. They don't know what it's made of, as they say. They can't prove how high or where the moon is or what it's made of because they don't know what it is. They think it's a light, but you can't see what kind of light. And I think one flat earther says it's a special kind of light that you can have shadows on, but yeah, and that's why it's different points. And why do you have a half moon, quarter moon, stuff like that? How can you have that? They say, well, it's because it changes, but they can't prove why or how it's powered or where it is. A dome that's never been measured. It's 24-hour sun. They say it's reflections. We had when all the solar flare are like the what it's meaning to say is the sunspots that you can see on the sun and prove that it's the same sun no matter what you see it. If it's a reflection, it'd be completely it'd be like a mirror image instead of being rotated around. They what else you can't say? They can't explain how tides work. They can't explain why is it that southern flight routes don't work they work perfectly on the globe but don't work on a flat Earth, and how come the distances are much bigger? Why is it that all lands south of the equator are double or triple the size that they should be? They can't explain, ask where the South Pole is. They say it's in Antarctica, but when Antarctica being a giant, huge ring around the whole entire Earth, they can't point out where it is. The Vandy globe goes around Antarctica, and as they go on circling around it, Antarctica is on one side, and they keep turning towards it. And yet that doesn't work on a flat Earth, nor is the times that they do with, because if you look at the times that the Vandy globe does this globe race around Antarctica, it works perfectly at the globe. It doesn't work on a flat Earth. Sunrises, the flat Earth can't explain sunrise, sunset, and the fact is that the sun rises sun rises southeast from the southeast and sets in the southwest in the southern hemisphere. So Occam's razor is all the assumptions and everything they have to make for the flat Earth to work is so drastic that the only thing that works. But if you look at the Earth, the globe orbits the sun once every year. The rotation, it rotates one revolution every day, so it's in 24 hours, it does nearly one full revolution, rotation. and yet just having those few things explains all the seasons, explains all the days, nights, and then the sun, the moon orbiting the sun on the Earth, and orbits around us, and goes through its phases every 28 days, which is reflecting the sun's light. And you have something called gravity, which works everything, and it explains all the orbits of all the planets, explains Mercury, explains Venus, explains how the sun works, the fact the Earth is tilted 23.4 degrees. It explains the 24-hour sun in the northern hemisphere during the northern summer, and explains the 24-hour sun in the southern hemisphere over the Antarctica in the summers, in the southern summers. Explains everything. So which one? It's one seems to work out perfectly. One, you have to make a whole bunch of assumptions and things that can't be proven, never been observed, and you have to just kind of say it's magic. Magic Sky Daddy did this. Magic Sky Daddy did that. So Occam's razor actually proves the globe and falsifies the flat Earth. Arbiter's paradox. Actually, it's a new one on me. We'll look that up. Hey, Gemini.
Hey there. What's going on?
What's Arbiter's paradox?
You might be thinking of Olber's paradox. It's about why the night sky is dark even though the universe has so many stars. The basic idea is that if the universe is infinite and full of stars, then every line of sight should eventually end on a star, making the whole sky bright. But it's not. Want to hear some of the explanations for why the night sky is actually dark?
Yes, please.
Okay, so there are a few main ideas. One is that the universe isn't infinitely old, so light from the most distant stars hasn't reached us yet. Another is that the universe is expanding, which causes the light from distant stars to redshift, making it less visible. And finally, some of the light from stars is absorbed by dust and gas in space.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Do you have any other questions about space or the universe?
Not right now.
No problem. Feel free to ask if anything else comes up.
Right, so there you are. So that doesn't really disprove the globe at all.
Paradox, Operation Fishbowl, Operation High Jump, Operation Dominic.
Operation Fishbowl is actually what they were doing with that, because I did a video on this one here, is that they were testing nuclear weapons at different altitudes to see how does it affect radio communications. So if a nuclear weapon was to be detonated, how would it affect nuclear radio communications at different altitudes and stuff like that. It also they were also testing to see how it would affect different land masses. It also affect how they also had different test animals. It was brutal because it was 1950s, and including at different points how far away. And they had different. It's called Operation Fishbowl because the nuclear weapons had different kind of fish names. So they had like. And then they went up to different altitudes just to see how it affected different points and also different magnitudes as well. So, Operation High Jump was when Admiral Byrd went down to Antarctica, and they're explaining Antarctica. It doesn't actually prove the flat. This doesn't actually prove the flat Earth and doesn't falsify the globe, because he even explained that. On the other side of the South Pole, which they did know where the South Pole was at that time, because it already had been discovered and there was a base there. Or it was a base there? I think there was a base there, yeah. They knew what the South Pole was, and he said that there's land the size of America past the South Pole. What he meant if you're looking at it from... Remember, he was from the States, so you look from here, so the South Pole, and you're seeing what there's land the size of the United States south of that, past that, which it was, because from here he was here and he went all in this here, and it's about the size of the United States of America, It was all the land mass that was down here, including all the ice and stuff like that. So that was what he was referring to. It was on the other side, past where you went, if you're traveling from the Americas. But it actually worked out perfectly fine, and in fact, I think he ended up at the Ross Ice Shelf, went there several times and talked about all the different resources and stuff there. But when he realized that the Antarctica was so pristine and hadn't been touched by humans and stuff like that, is when Antarctic Treaty was formed, and there's an agreement that we're going to only try to preserve Antarctica, keep it as pure and as preserved as well because of all the different discoveries and scientific discoveries you can make down there. So there's no military, and there's also no drilling or stuff like that down there. It's only for scientific studies because of all the stuff you could find, and without it having been like touched and tainted by humans.
Operation Manhigh?
I don't know what Operation Manhigh is. I haven't heard that one, but let's find out. What's Operation Manhigh?
Operation Manhigh was a series of high-altitude balloon flights by the US Air Force in the late 1950s. They were trying to see what it would be like for humans in space. The astronauts wore special suits and went really high up into the atmosphere.
What was the results of Operation Manhigh?
Flights showed that humans could survive for extended periods at really high altitudes, which was a big step towards figuring out how to send people into space. They also gathered data on things like cosmic radiation and the effects of weightlessness.
Oh, so that doesn't disprove the globe at all.
Project Mockingbird?
Project Mockingbird. What was Project Mockingbird?
Project Mockingbird was a covert CIA operation from the 1950s to the 1970s. The goal was to influence domestic and foreign media. They wanted to shape public opinion by funding student and cultural organizations and infiltrating the news industry.
It doesn't prove anything about the shape of the Earth there, so that's just, he's making shit up there.
Then we've got, what else do we got? Sagnac, he said that the 15-degree-an-hour shift in the interferometry was due to the vortex of the ether. There's specular highlights. The moon should have one. It does not.
What does Sagnac say about the 15 degrees per hour?
The Sagnac experiment, performed by George Sagnac in 1913, demonstrated that light travels at a constant speed regardless of the motion of its source. This result is consistent with Einstein's theory of relativity and shows that the Earth's rotation does not affect the speed of light.
Oh, so he's just lying there. All right.
I understand your concern about the 15 degrees per hour claim. It's true that the Earth rotates at that rate, but it doesn't mean we can directly observe that speed in our everyday lives. The Sagnac experiment actually confirms the Earth's rotation, but in a more subtle way.
Yeah, somebody's on our video is claiming that Sagnac disproved the rotation of the Earth.
That's not quite right. The Sagnac experiment actually confirms the Earth's rotation. It shows that light traveling in the same direction as the Earth's rotation takes longer to return to its starting point than light traveling against the rotation. This difference in travel time is consistent with the Earth's rotation.
Specular reflections. Large bodies of water have specular reflections. That only happens on a flat surface, free of band.
That's not true at all. In fact, I think I've seen some on this. Hold on here. Let's just see. Here we are here. So an object is visible because of its is reflecting light from a light source, or the light source, or is the light source itself. Reflection of light can be specular, mirror-like, or glossy, or diffuse, matte. Some flat earthers compared the appearance of the moon to a glossy ball and conclude the moon does not reflect sunlight, or are wrong. They are wrong. A glossy ball has specular reflection. On the other hand, the moon has only diffuse reflection. The moon itself cannot be visible if it's not reflecting light. So here is showing diffused, like the moon, and then specular, like off of our off the oceans and stuff like that. And you can see how this works out perfectly on a smooth Earth ocean. Also, here, here's another one, tinfoil ball, specular. There's a sphere there. Specular reflections off a sphere there. Can we have specular reflections off of our 100% can, and diffuse. So specular reflections do not disprove the globe Earth.
Synonyms are.
In fact, Nathan's own balls that he's juggling show specular reflection on spheres, debunking his claim.
Bends, curves, or irregularities. Synonyms are plumb.
It's wrong.
Smooth. Flat as a pancake.
No.
Then you've got telemetry data that NASA's losing. All the pictures of the globe are CGI with.
No. The telemetry data that NASA said they had lost, it wasn't. They had only a certain number of tapes you could use back in the Apollo missions, and so what they did is they backed it all up. They had it all there. They haven't lost it. It's backed up. You can find it. And then they wrote over the original stuff that got after it's all backed up and put in storage. They used the same tapes. They wrote over them because they only had so many because NASA's on a certain budget, right? All the images of the globe are not CGI. They are. If you look at any of the Apollo missions, you look at the Mercury missions, the Gemini missions, and the Apollo missions, there's about 30,000 different pictures, all on physical film, and it was they're scanned in by the University of Arizona to preserve them because some of the films and stuff were starting to degrade over like 50 odd years. So they did when they had scanners that were high enough quality to get the high definition that they need. They have scanned them in, and anybody can look it up. Look up March to the Moon. You can look at all the images all you like, and you even give breakdown of what the cameras were, what the lens was like, when it was taken, where it was taken, what date, and even sometimes who took them. So no, all images of the Earth are not CGI whatsoever. You can also look at the Himawari 8 or 9, I think it's Himawari 9 now, and that shows a image of the Earth every 10 minutes, in which you can even look and match up the weather patterns. You can look at the Discovery of the Epic camera. That shows images of the Earth. In fact, even shows the Earth rotating. And you can look up the NOAA's. They have their goes east, goes west, and goes U satellites, and they show their all geostationary orbit cameras that are looking at satellites that are looking at different parts because they use them for doing different weather and predicting and stuff like that as well. So no, not all images of the Earth are CGI. There's many pictures that are taken all the time, as well as like you have like the live feed from like some of the SpaceX ones. They had the recent ones that was done by the Fram 2, as well as you have Artemis. When Artemis 1 and Artemis 2 went up, they actually did videos of the Earth as well. They weren't CGI at all. They were all live videos, some of them. So no, that's 100% wrong. But Flat Earthers claim that because they don't like the fact is that every single image that is shown of the Earth shows the Earth is a sphere, and there's not a single image that shows the flat Earth.
Photoshop clouds, astronauts and their hairspray, and their watch.
There's no astronauts with hairspray. You can see it moving around. In fact, there's even videos of people combing them. Can you comb something like that with hairspray? That is 100% dishonest and untrue. There's in zero gravity or microgravity, and the hair tends to kind of just float up and move depending on if they're got long hair and they move to one side, the hair kind of stays there and it follows because it's not being acted by a force like gravity.
Wires and harnesses.
That's false. Those are all Flat Earth claims that are unfounded and untrue.
There's bubbles in space.
No. The bubbles in space were some water that was escaping, and you can see it if it was in a pool, which the claim was, it'd be floating up. You see it scattering all the way out in different ways, and it's because it's in micro gravity or even zero G, call it.
It's all fake.
It's not.
We got permaculture, planispheres, ephemerides.
Ephemerides actually prove the globe is the model based on the spherical Earth, and don't work with a flat Earth whatsoever.
Quantum locking.
What is quantum locking?
Quantum locking is a really cool phenomenon where a superconductor can levitate and stay fixed in mid-air above a magnet. It's like the superconductor gets locked in place by the magnetic field. Did you want to know more about how it works?
Is that where you have something that's like nearly freezing, and then the you can quantum lock using that? It has to be like really cold.
Yes, that's right. Quantum locking requires a material called a superconductor, which needs to be cooled down to extremely low temperatures, close to absolute zero. This is usually done with liquid nitrogen, which is very, very cold.
So he's talking about, like, you know, when they do those experiments, they have something that's like super cold and it locks in. But as soon as it warms up, that phenomenon goes away. So that doesn't actually prove anything about the flat Earth or the globe Earth.
Railguns.
Railguns and railroads. Railroads work perfectly well on the globe. And in fact, railroads can go up and down hills and mountains, everything else. And railguns are line of sight, but you can arc them up and you can go over the like any other projectile. Is subject to the Coriolis effect, as well as also subject to the curvature of the Earth. Can they shoot over the curvature a little bit? Yes, you can, because you can just aim up a bit, go over top, and let it come down. So while railguns do work that way, they are line of sight, but they can still hit something they can see just above the curvature of the Earth. That's fine.
Railroads. The Earth's a Tesla coil.
The Earth isn't a Tesla coil. That's bullshit. And the Peg clock doesn't prove anything.
What's it called? Sonoluminescence.
Sonoluminescence. What is sonoluminescence?
It's actually called sonoluminescence. It's when sound waves cause tiny bubbles in a liquid to collapse and release flashes of light.
Oh,
it's
right.
kind of like creating...
Yeah, that doesn't prove anything like that, because sonoluminescence, the only I've seen this, I looked into a bit. I was thinking like they call it a star in a jar, and it has to do with a certain frequency, but it is so dim, and you have to maintain it. It's so hard to get. You have to maintain it, and it's only very dim. Sonoluminescence is going to see we have a super dark room, and then you have a high, and you look really hard, you can kind of sort of see it a little bit. It doesn't prove anything like that, because you still have to try to maintain that certain type of frequency, and then and even then you have to hit it just right, and then it's not even very bright. It looks very bright because it's the really dark room, and then you have a long exposure, really big aperture camera to see it, and even then that's why the room looks brighter than it actually is. It's not. It has to be like super dark.
U-2 spy planes.
U-2 spy planes actually show the curvature of the Earth. I have a video on my TikTok showing that. And James May, you can look on YouTube. James May went up in a U-2 spy plane, and he even said himself and showed he could see the curvature of the Earth, and he even filmed it with his camera.
Vectors and all the space logos. Whales can communicate 4,000 miles apart.
Whales can communicate that far because they're in water, and sound travels a lot better in water, and obviously you have a lot of distance up and down. So while you have whales lower down, as it's going water, and it actually spreads out as well. So you have sound in water will spread out very wide, and so you can go over top of any kind of go around like a curvature and stuff like that. You can still be seeing, especially above just if something's a little bit higher up. So that doesn't, and obviously his things about sweeps and stuff like that, because they look nice, they look pretty, and people like them. So they want to show like orbiting and different things. It's all marketing. It means nothing about the curvature or anything to do with the Earth.
Guillermo Marconi sent a 2,000-mile radar transmission.
Marconi, he actually that only worked because it was called it bounced off the ionosphere. It's called propagation, radio wave propagation, and hand radio operators use this all the time. Microwave, same thing. Microwave transmissions can propagate off of the ionosphere and over the curvature of the Earth. This is quite well documented and explained and understood.
Or microwave transmission across the Atlantic.
Yeah, that's easy. That's propagation.
Explorers like Captain Cook, Picard, all those.
Picard actually, they always leave out the interview when Picard says he actually seen the curvature of the Earth from his plane. Captain Cook, he documented loads of different stuff, including trying to go around Antarctica, but he obviously documented a lot of his travels and stuff. When you look it up, proves curvature of the Earth.
People.
The globe Earth.
And the UV light index shows that the sun is small and local.
That's a lie. It doesn't. What it shows is that the fact is that because the Earth is a globe and it's tilted as it goes around, obviously the equator tends to be facing more towards the sun. It gets the same amount of UV, where it is, because it's never too far off. It can be, so say the equator is here, and if you tilt it that way, in let's say the southern summer, or that way in the northern summer, you still have a lot of direct sunlight still hitting the middle, and then he's talking throughout the year. Obviously, up this way, you get a lot less. Sunlight is still going to hit, but it's going to hit a steeper angle, or not even at all if you're at like the North Pole. It's going to hit here, and then it's going to change that way there. You're going to tilt this way here. You can still have sun hitting, but it's hitting at a different angle, so you're going to have less UV because some of the atmosphere of the Earth reflects some of the sunlight when it's at that steep of an angle, and so it's reflected away, but you get directly there. So no, that doesn't prove anything. And in fact, it actually proves that the Earth is at a 23.4 degree tilt and orbits around the sun. So that alone actually debunks the flat Earth and proves the spherical Earth, because that would not work on the flat Earth at all.
Green flash shows that the sun is above the horizon.
Green flash is down to the fact is that the refraction, and as the sun sets over top, then you're having that little bit because it's going through the thickest part of the atmosphere. It actually proves the refractive index of the Earth and the tilt.
Horizon when it sets.
And the rotation. It's the green. It just has to do with the last bit of what light can still pass through that at that point there, going through the atmosphere as the sun sets below. The sunset alone debunks the flat Earth because the sun could never dip below the horizon.
And that's about all I got for you today, guys.
So that's it, Nathan. I debunked everything you said there. Everything you said is bullshit, and I told him I was going to do this on my live stream, and I'd done it. That's it. So yeah, that was Nathan freaking chase after the children, and after school buses Thompson, who got arrested and is actually banned from 50 different schools in the area he was in when he done that, and he live streamed it just to make sure that the police had all the evidence he needed. So yeah, that's about it.